Ford profiles in quality. Dealer service.
At Ford, we're committed to building the highest quality American cars and trucks.
As a Ford dealer, we want to back that up with the highest quality service in America.
That's why we can offer 6-year, 60,000-mile powertrain warranties.
And we can back it up with lifetime service guarantees.
We're as determined to provide quality care
as we are to building quality cars and trucks.
At your Ford and Lincoln Mercury dealer, quality is job one.
Welcome to the Sports Illustrated team. If you have any questions about your subscription or would like to renew, please call us at 1-800-541-1000 or write to us at Time Customer Service, P.O. Box 6001, Tampa, Florida 33601-0001.
We all know that athletes are gallant, dignified, and descended from the gods.
Judge, if I'd have seen you hit the bat, I'd have called you right in the batter's box. You never making it up? You know I ain't saying you're making it up. I swear to God, I hit the bat. Let me take it.
But for every great moment an athlete has in him, there are 5 or 6 not-so-great moments waiting to burst forth.
She learned a lesson. She broke my heart. I was the one.
Fortunately, there's retirement when an athlete can enter an announcer's booth and put all his mistakes behind him.
I'm lonely and I'm blue, but I'll try to get along.
Just a minute.
But if you think I look silly in these clips, wait till you see what's coming.
Just Pilot is coming at him like a game horse. Just Pilot has got him. Just Pilot the neck. Just Pilot a half a length. Just Pilot by a length. On to second to 3. What am I talking about? Ladies and gentlemen, I've made a terrific mistake.
And now it's panic. They have to get out of their shoes, and now we must have the rescue. We must come in for the rescue.
I happen to be cast into that role, a 55-year-old guy with one foot in the grave. That's what it's all about, and it is going to be the battle of the sexes. Don't anybody...
A wild scramble. 2 seconds on the clock. There's nothing real in the world anymore. The Raiders won the football game. Collins to Darryl Dawkins. Oh, he did it again. He broke it again.
Brad has just homered, and Billy Martin and the Yankees want the bat.
Well, what they're talking about, Brady.
The Yankees win. He's out.
Yes,
Brad is out. Look at this. Brad is out. And
they're killing me, Eddie. They're killing me.
Our first story is one of the wildest tales we've ever run across. It's about a man named Lou Zamperini, who proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that it ain't over until it's over.
Lou Zamperini was a miler on the 1936 Olympic team. He was out of Southern California. He was the 3rd youngest man on the team. He was 19. Full of fun, full of mischief as well.
But there was no fun or mischief or running for Zamperini in World War II. There was an excruciating ordeal that left him logically and legally dead.
I was a bombardier aboard a B-24 that crashed in friendly waters, actually. We drifted about 1,500 miles across the Pacific into the enemy-occupied Marshall Islands. During the course of that drift, we were strafed for about 45 minutes by a Japanese patrol bomber. And the 33rd day, the tail gunner, the 3rd member of the crew, died. The 2 of us were taken captive on the island of Kwajalein. Spent 43 days there in a cell. But finally, on the 43rd day, we were told that we would be prisoners of war, shipped to Yokohama, and there to spend the next 2.5 years as prisoners of war.
Missing in action, Zamperini became a war hero, and the nation mourned his loss. A little prematurely.
I was officially declared dead, so officially that even after the war, I collected my life insurance money and was able to keep it.
But as Mark Twain would have said, reports of Zamperini's death were greatly exaggerated.
No one knew he was alive, of course. And Frank Brennan was the director of the Knights of Columbus track meet. The big race for the Knights of Columbus track meet was called the Columbian Mile. The mile in those days, and it's still the situation, it was the big race of the night. And they changed the name from the Columbian Mile to the Lou Zamperini Memorial Mile.
In March of 1945, the Lou Zamperini Mile was run. And 3 months later, Lou returned.
Naturally, on a life raft at sea, one makes promises to God, and I had promised God that if I survived this experience, that I would seek him and serve him.
His prayers were answered, but some of his memorializers felt a little cheated.
A few close friends made comments. Some of them said, well, we were awful disappointed and see you coming back here and causing all this furor over your death. People have gone through a great length to name memorials after you, and you come home alive and ruin it.
And so, the starter of the second and final Lou Zamperini Memorial Mile was Lou Zamperini himself.
When I appeared at the scene of the race, I was still in uniform. I stood behind the great milers of that day and started the race. And that was a thrill for me, and to think that they thought enough of me while I was declared dead to name this race after me. It was really one of the highlights of my life.
Not everybody gets to make a comeback like that one. In fact, sometimes in sports, people rumored to be alive can end up wishing they weren't.
Always poles broken. Coach has always been an attacker, and it doesn't really matter. Oh, what a victim! Has he got the car? He has his car.
Should be all treated. Really doesn't. Well, let's give him the crowd their money's worth up there.
Darryl Dawkins doesn't shatter records. He specializes in backboards and labeling his awesome dunk shots things like, "In your face, chocolate thunder." This one in Kansas City had the force of a hand grenade, exploding shrapnel all over his opponent's head. A tough break for him, as the replay shows. It also inspired the NBA to adopt a flexible Dawkins-proof hoop and to label him a real pain in the glass. Now, this isn't a TV replay. It's a Dawkins replay, a month later in Philadelphia. Lou Zamperini drifted 1,500 miles on the Pacific Ocean, but the Navy of Oxford University in Great Britain was swamped on the Thames River during the annual Oxford and Cambridge boat race. The fleet was disappearing without a shot being fired.
Problems. There they go. There they go. And now it's panic. They have to get out of their shoes.
This was neither the first nor the last time. In 1978, it was the Cambridge crew's turn to sink.
They won't sink into the deep. They're still in contact with the boat. They've got their feet out of their shoes.
6 years later, another Cambridge shell suffered a more humiliating humiliation. It rode off course into a bridge instead of under it. Obviously, there are no Admiral Nelsons at Cambridge. It emerged from the collision looking like a sailfish with a busted beak. I never thought of crew as a dangerous sport before. Golfers frequently wind up in a creek, if not a river, but up a tree? Never. Well, hardly ever. Bernhard Langer of West Germany managed that trick when his shot nestled like a bird's egg in a tree. The 1985 Masters champion showed what champions are made of by assaulting the hazard as though it were Everest itself. Then Langer gave new meaning to the term woodshot by straddling a couple of big branches and calmly chipping out onto the green. Just all in a day's play. His score on the hole, naturally, was tree. Long before there was television to provide not-so-great moments for its viewers, plenty of radio announcers were proving that they didn't have to be seen in order to be heard, screwing up.
I want to tell you, folks, we're seeing history made today. Here we are in the top of the ninth inning. There are 2 outs. The White Sox fans are on the edge of their seats as pitcher...
The body was found with the arms and legs dismembered, tied into a sack and floating in the bay. I'll be back with more sports in a moment.
I'm very proud and happy to present this award to Ms. Helen Douglas, the state intercourse champ.
While our game is being temporarily held up, our well-known organist, who's located in the center field stands, is going to entertain you by diddling on his organ.
For the Philadelphia Warriors, in the first half, Will Chamberlain was high with 27 points.
The score at the half remained 6-6, but during the third quarter, the Crimson really came to life, scoring a touchdown on 8 successive plays. The turning point came when the coach sent in his aspect.
There have been many ball players who have been able to handle a bat from either the left or right side of the batter's box. But I think most sports writers will agree that Mickey Mantle is one of the greatest swish hitters of all times.
In the National League, the Cubs edged out Milwaukee 2-1. The Cards were taken by the Dodgers 6-4, behind the 3-hit pitching of Don Newcomb. And hey, you pulled out my AC power. You in the brown suit I'm supposed to be on the air. You pulled out my plug. You pulled out my AC, you fat fool.
A slip of the tongue is a hazard of the trade. A slip of the eyes could be, and on one notorious occasion was a nightmare.
Bill Stern was a famous radio announcer. He had the magnificent radio voice, but he had a device. If he had the wrong man calling the ball on a 90-yard run, he'd say, there goes Nagler. He's at the 10, the 15, the 20, the 25, the 30. He's across midfield. And at the 10-yard line, he'd have Nagler lateral the ball to Lee. Lee was the original ball carrier. Now in the 1947 Preakness, he was the color man at Pimlico. And there were two favorites in that race. One was Faultless, and the other was Jet Pilot.
With no TV, the first national picture of the race would be painted by the greatest of all racecasters, Clem McCarthy. Here's what millions heard.
Jim Milton's been starting these races since way back, and they're off. And they got away together. And Jet Pilot beat phalanx away from the gate. And Cornish Knight on the inside is getting different riding tactics today. And the crowd blocks him for a moment. And when they come out of there, Jet Pilot is head and head with him. And on the outside, phalanx away out in the middle of the pack. This is going to be an awful horse race down here. But on still there. Jet Pilot is coming at him like a game horse. Jet Pilot has got him. Jet Pilot the next. Jet Pilot a half a length. Jet Pilot by a length. Third, and in fourth place. What am I talking about? Ladies and gentlemen, I've made a terrific mistake. I mixed my horses, and I have given you the winner as Jet Pilot, and it is Faultless. Just at what point I was looking at phalanx, and Jet Pilot disappeared on me, I don't know. The winner of the race is Faultless.
The horses were obscured by the overflow crowd at the turn for home. And that's where McCarthy missed the change of leaders.
He had made a terrible mistake. And Bill Stern, who was doing the color, then proceeded for 5 full minutes to say it wasn't a terrible thing happened to Clem. He called the wrong horse, but he's really a fine man, and he's a good radio man. Oh, my God, poor Clem, and he did this. And now the broadcast is over, and Clem fixed Stern with a cold stare and said, Bill, it's too bad you can't lateral a horse.
All right, we missed. We struck out. Well, Babe Ruth struck out once, so I might just as well get in famous company.
2 decades later, a whole TV network, NBC, had a nightmare when it broadcast all but the most important part of a big football game.
I was sitting in the mobile unit outside of the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum, and we were getting ready to televise a game between the New York Jets and the Oakland Raiders. And at that time, those were 2 very popular teams in the American Football League. And as we got down near the end of the game, it was a close game and score. And that's when it all began to happen. The network had scheduled Heidi, a movie for children, to start at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
Going in about the last 5 minutes of the game, the score changed hands quite often, and it became a tie game. Around 7:15, when the game looked like it might run into 7 o'clock, the sports executives started calling one another. They decided that if the game did run into 7 o'clock, that they would keep the game on and slide Heidi. In other words, start Heidi after the football game.
Meanwhile, viewers nationwide were very curious to know if they would see the end of the game.
People started calling the New York switchboard. And on Sunday, they don't have it manned very heavily. They probably have 1 or 2 operators. And the phones, there were so many phone calls, they blew a fuse in the system.
As a result, the execs couldn't get through to network control to give the order to keep the football game on. The Jets led the Raiders by a field goal when most of the nation saw this on their screens. While the switchboard in New York lit up, the Raiders lit up the scoreboard in Oakland, scoring 2 touchdowns in the last minute. There was a national furor over the blunder, and NBC issued a directive that henceforth all games would be aired to their conclusion.
Being the producer of the now quote unquote Heidi game, I began to get a lot of things in the mail, like little Heidi dolls and also cards, and of course I got some others, a lot of Heidi books. So I got to become very familiar with Heidi following that experience.
Now you may ask, what has this got to do with sports? Well, a lot of people ask that question.
No kidding.
Well, hello.
Oh, Elle McPherson.
Didn't I just see you?
98% naked?
I don't know if I'd have phrased it like that.
Listen, that's what it says in this letter here. Yeah. I did not order Sports Illustrated expecting to see women who are 98% naked. Please cancel my subscription.
Believe it or not, every year these innocent young ladies are the cause of more controversy than any other story in SI.
Here, you read one.
All right, my pleasure. Or is it? Dear SI, I was disgusted by your swimsuit disgrace. I tore the issue into shreds and tossed it into the fire with the devil and his imps.
And here we have another one. Dear S.I., who are you trying to kid? Your readers can see right through the swimsuit coverage.
Revealing.
Dear S.I., shame on you and shame on Cheryl Teagues.
But then there's this friendly note from the frigid north.
Which I'm about to find here.
Dear S.I., since your swimsuit issue arrived here, the sleet has stopped and even the ground is beginning to thaw. In some places.
If my son gets to be 13 years old and doesn't look at these pictures, I'll take him to a psychologist. If my husband stops looking at them, I'll know he's dead.
I'll know he's dead, too. That's my kind of controversy, but it's nothing compared to some of these.
Mr. Official, let me ask you something. How can 6 of you miss a play like that, huh? All 6 of you. The ball jumped out of there as soon as we made contact, and nobody...
I thought you were talking about you being on the field.
No. What?
Hey, pick up! Pick up! Pick up! Pick up! Pick up right there! Pick up! You picked him up!
Oh, he pulled his arm! Oh, he pulled his arm! He pulled him!
Do you see the offensive tackle? He literally tackled the strong safety.
He had him.
He tackled him, for crying out loud. Open your eyes. I can't believe that.
First down by 2 feet. 2 feet. He's got it easy. Got it easy.
I can't see.
Oh, the thing is way over here. He's got it by 2 feet.
Oh, there's a clip! Damn, there's a clip! What the hell's wrong with you?
Oh, that is a crock.
They're killing me, Whitey. They're killing me.
Oakland trails 20-14. 10 seconds left.
Every once in a while, someone stumbles through a loophole in the rules. The Oakland Raiders caused a minor controversy against the San Diego Chargers on the last play of the game, when a forward fumble produced a game-winning touchdown.
Flip forward is loose. A wild scramble. 2 seconds on the clock. Casper grabbing the ball. It is ruled a fumble. Casper has recovered in the end zone. The Oakland Raiders have scored on the most zany, unbelievable, absolutely impossible dream of a play. Madden is on the field. He wants to know if it's real. They said yes. Get your big butt out of here. He does.
The NFL changed the rules, but it didn't help the Chargers much that Sunday.
This one will be relived forever.
Now here's a controversy that never happened, but probably should have. Tommy Underwood of the Yankees is pitching to Jose Morales of the Twins. The count goes to 3-2, and then, check this, 4-2. Apparently the umpire, the pitcher, and perhaps the batter all lost count. Morales then lined the 4-2 pitch for a double, and it looks like the second baseman had a few questions about that one. But there have been occasions when an official's error has mushroomed into a full-blown controversy, as it did in the '72 Olympics.
I think the thing that stands out more in my mind than anything else is that the game started like at midnight to accommodate national television. Also, there was a big controversy over whether the game was ever even going to be played or not because of the horrible disaster they had there with the Israeli athletes being slain. There was a lot of talk about the games being canceled, so we didn't even know whether we were going to play the game or not. It wasn't just two basketball teams playing. It was the United States against the Soviet Union.
The Russians had the ball in a 1-point lead with 6 seconds left.
And the ball goes into the corner, and it's picked up, and the guy tried a cross-court pass. And when he did, I anticipated, I knocked it loose, and picked it up, and was driving length to the floor, and I went in for a layup, and when I did, the Russian player just submarined me.
Collins was awarded 2 free throws, a chance to avert the only Olympic defeat a U.S. team ever suffered in the game we invented. Veteran coach Hank Iba's conservative style, successful in 2 previous Olympics, seemed to shackle the Americans almost as much as the talented Russians did. But now Collins was righting things. With 3 seconds left on the clock, Collins sank both baskets and the natural order was restored. Or was it? A sequence of confusing events began to unravel. As the Russians put the ball in play, their coach illegally requested a timeout, and it was granted over Iba's protest, and the clock was set to 3 seconds.
The two guys who refereed the game both spoke different languages, so they couldn't talk to each other. And there were 2 or 3 times during the course of the game where one official called one thing and one called something else, and they were actually tugging over the ball to see who would make the call.
Different languages, different interpretations of rules. The emotions of a hotly disputed final, a formula for confusion. Russia finally put the ball in play again and again failed to make a desperation basket. So, for the second time, the Americans, coaches, players, and fans began to celebrate. This was the way it was supposed to be. A gold medal for the U.S. in basketball was considered a birthright. But wait, what conspiracy is underfoot now? How many times do we have to win this game? An international basketball official, an Englishman, insisted that the Russians get still another chance because the clock had not been correctly reset to 3 seconds. And this time, the Russian star Alexander Belov outmuscled 2 Americans for a full-court pass and made the winning shot. Bedlam, bitterness, and disbelief followed.
Coach Iba got pickpocketed during the whole fracas when he went out to protest. I think he got like $300 lifted out of his wallet. I mean, it was an absolute zoom.
The Russians celebrated, as we did years later after beating them in hockey. The Americans refused to attend the ceremony to accept the silver medals.
I don't think there'll ever be that controversial play ever again in basketball. I mean, you know, there might be a game that's controversial, but not that meaningful. You know, I'm not so sure that this game didn't have ramifications later on in terms of boycotting different. I'm not so sure that all this has not carried over till now.
The most famous controversy in American sports history, the long count, occurred in the rematch between Jack Dempsey and Gene Tunney in Chicago. Tunney, a master boxer, had upset the brawling, legendary Dempsey the year before. It was 1927, the year of Ruth and Lindbergh.
In the 7th round, Dempsey landed a combination of punches, ending with a tremendous left hook that put Tunney down. He did not go to a neutral corner, and Dave Barry picked up the count and counted 1 over Tunney, which was the actual count of 5. What happened was that when Dave Barry reached the count of 9, it was the actual count of 14.
Bloody and apparently beaten, Dempsey had summoned one last charge to deck Tunney, but he momentarily forgot the new neutral corner rule, lingering there for 5 seconds. Legend has it that cost him the fight.
The crucial question is, could Tunney have gotten up, not at the referee's count of 9, but at the referee's count of 5, which is the real count of 9? And you'll notice that at the referee's count of 5, Tunney is looking at him with his hand on the upper rope, ready to get up immediately. There is no question, none, that Tunney could have gotten up at the actual count of 9. He, as a smart fighter, he waited till the referee's count of 9.
Dempsey tried to follow up his knockdown, but the younger, faster Tunney avoided him. The legend of the long count persists to this day, I suppose, because nobody wanted to believe that a legend like Dempsey could be beaten. Imagine, if you will, a controversy starring a popular ball player from a small city, a malevolent pitcher, a volatile manager, and a publicity-conscious owner, all in the most famous ballpark in the land, Yankee Stadium. The Pine Tar incident was a biggie, and it dragged on, and it figures to outlast even the best soap operas.
That's $2, buddy.
$2? But I'm a friend of Billy Martin's.
Billy Martin? That's $4.
The owner was George Steinbrenner. The league president, Lee MacPhail. The manager played by Billy Martin. The pitcher was Goose Gossage. The ball player, George Brett. And the bat, a Louisville Slugger. The big question, is there such a thing as a game-losing home run?
That's gone. George Brett has just
The fiendish Martin waited until Brett hurt the Yankees with a big hit before pointing out the obscure rule limiting the use of pine tar.
Sure whether he has a home run yet or not. That's Nick Bremigan with the bat.
This is going to be an interesting call.
Well, he's out. Yes, sir. Brett is out. Look at this. Brett is out. And the team is back. He is out and having to be forcibly restrained from hitting plate umpire Tim McClellan. And the Yankees have won the ball game 4-3. Brett is called out for using.
As for the pine tar, it looks like Brett has no case because the rules say...
George says he was not aware of the pine tar rule and...
Happily for the eager media, the Royals kept the fire burning by appealing to league president Lee MacPhail. MacPhail ruled for the Royals, invoking the spirit of the law, in effect that the bat, not the pine tar, hit the ball.
Well, he's opening Pandora's box now. Every time there's a violation of a rule in baseball, somebody will argue, well, the spirit of the rule isn't that, even though it says that in black and white.
I think the rule should be rewritten and clarified, and I would say the next time I will certainly bring it to the attention of the Rules Committee.
The Yankees tried to make a court case out of it, but settled for playing the bottom of the 9th inning a month later. Still fuming and scheming, Martin first appealed to all the umpires on whether Brett had touched all the bases on his homer. They denied his last-ditch appeal at each base. Then the Yankees meekly went down 1-2-3.
Now, the pine tar game is finally over. Maybe. The game that began...
The pine tar incident was then certified as a controversy in the modern manner by a commercial, with Brett, of course, but not the Yankees.
George Brett. Not bad. Maybe you could use a little pine tar. Thanks. I really missed this.
Did the umpire blow the call on George Brett, or was he just caught betwixt and between the line of the rule book? Whatever, that's hardly the only peril of umpiring in any sport.
You always hurt the one.
A baseball is hard as a rock and doesn't care who it hits on a ball field. Ouch. From first-hand experience, I can tell you that's smarts.
You always take the sweetest rose and crush it till the petals fall. You always break the kindest heart with a hasty word you can't recall.
baseball weighs about 6 ounces. When a referee gets hit in football, however, it's by something that weighs 4,000 or 5,000 ounces. Sometimes a punch doesn't care who it hits either. This referee was so diligent examining the fight at such close range that he became a part of it, the part that suffered the KO. A right cross by the fighter with his back to us barely missed his opponent, but it nailed the ref right on the button. Then down and out he went. The fighter was too stunned to count over the fallen referee. I guess, as the replay shows, the ref just had a glass chin. When John Mugabe hits people, they tend to do funny things. This guy dragged the referee right out of the ring. Talk about funny things. Peter Mueller, a German middleweight, was fighting Peter Stretz. With much zest, I might add. Too much, in fact. The ref got in the way of a punch, which the camera, like the ref, didn't see. But you can see the ref's leg stretched on the canvas, and you can see Mueller ignoring him and going after Stretz with continued zest. When officials climbed into the ring to try to rescue the stricken referee, the crazed Mueller went after them too. When order was restored and the referee revived, Mueller left the ring triumphantly, as though he still didn't have a clue. The ring has often been a stage for bizarre events, and not always between fighter and fighter, or even fighter and referee. How about fighter and wrestler? How about fighter and animal? How about fighter and a whole town? Jack Dempsey, who did it all, did beat a town out of a bunch of money.
In modern times, there have been many countries that have put up astronomical sums of money in order to induce a big fight to take place in their country. In a vast majority of those cases, the fight was a success, and the promotion was a horrible disaster. The Thrilla in Manila, when Ali fought Frazier, was a sensational fight, but Manila took a horrible bath. And in Zaire, when Ali challenged George Foreman for the World Heavyweight Championship, Mobutu put up $10 million. And the fight was a cornerstone of boxing, but no one went, and the fight was not well attended, and the country lost a fortune.
Shelby, Montana wanted to be the little town that could, but it couldn't. It wanted to boom and went bust. Jack Dempsey arrived at this train station with a smile and left with a bigger smile. The caper set a precedent for many modern rip-offs.
On July 4th, 1923, when Jack Dempsey defended the heavyweight championship against Tom Gibbons, it was really a fight and a promotion created by Jack's manager, Jack Doc Kearns. He got the governor of Montana, the mayor of Shelby, Montana, to get behind the fight and get the entire community to get involved, to put up the money, to bring the legendary heavyweight champion, Jack Dempsey, to Shelby to fight Tom Gibbons. And what happened is they built the stadium in a crevice, which was surrounded by hills. And they built this wooden stadium that would seat approximately 23,000 people. And the city of Shelby was supposed to put up $100,000. They put up $75,000 front money, which got Dempsey to go to Shelby, Montana. And what happened basically is that they had this marvelous World Heavyweight Championship fight, and nobody came. It was a disaster.
Dempsey didn't even give Shelby much of a fight. He won a dull decision from Gibbons, who didn't collect a dime of his $50,000 guarantee. Dempsey spent the fight planning his getaway.
There were 3 major banks in Shelby, Montana that went bankrupt as a result of backing this fight. Not only did the banks go under, but the town of Shelby went under. In fact, one of the marvelous stories, and quite accurate, was that when the fight was over, Jack Doc Kearns recognized that it was a monumental disaster He didn't permit Dempsey to shower. Dempsey left the ring in his boxing trunks, and they both ran to the train, got on the train, and got out of town with their money.
Long after he retired at the age of 45, Jack Dempsey refereed a wrestling match, and a wrestler named Cowboy Jack Luttrell slugged him and knocked him down. Well, Dempsey challenged him to an all-holes-barred fight, officially an exhibition, and this is it. Dempsey is the one with hair on his head. Luttrell is the one taking an unholy beating. Dempsey has a definite advantage, however. He's fighting, but the wrestler isn't wrestling. This is brutal. Pay wasn't that great, but Dempsey showed Luttrell as much mercy as he showed Shelby. None. Like Jack Dempsey, there wasn't anything Muhammad Ali wouldn't try for money.
It was something that was blowing the imagination, a wrestler with a fighter. Everybody used to, say, let's have a wrestler. How would a wrestler do with a fighter? And there was pro and con, and you had that bit with the karate guys with a fighter. So that caught Muhammad's imagination. He wanted it, and he felt he could beat a wrestler.
You'll make $4 million because you're meeting the world's most famous man and the world's prettiest athlete.
Ali, who boasted that he learned to hype fights by watching a wrestler named Gorgeous George, was in his element. His Japanese opponent, Antonio Inoki, got in a few licks of his own.
We would be delighted to take you on as our publicity man when the fight is over.
This is round one. 15 rounds. Inoki tries a dive. He tries another dive.
Ali was faced with an unusual problem: how to get his opponent off the canvas so he could knock him back down. Ali had to really float like a butterfly to stay away from the Tokyo canvas back. Inoki didn't want to lose face, and Ali didn't want to lose legs.
80 degrees in this arena here this morning.
Inoki cannot wrestle. Inoki's busy. Inoki girl.
Now, Muhammad got Inoki. That's why the sucker laid on his back all night long, because he knew he was going to get knocked out. So he laid on his back. He figured it was the safest place, because Muhammad felt he will knock out Inoki. If Inoki had gotten up, he would have got knocked out.
Once Muhammad Ali touches the ropes.
Ali, who landed all of 4 jabs in the whole match, made millions. But who won? I mean, how do you score a farce? Who cares?
Now, the oddity about that match, a lot of people don't know, is that the referee was the only man to render a decision. And I walked up to him, I said, make it a draw. Nobody gets hurt. And he bit like Harry the Tuna, and he grabbed, and it was a draw.
There was a preliminary to the closed-circuit telecast of Ali and Inoki. Chuck Webner, a club fighter, who was the inspiration for Rocky Balboa of the Rocky movies, took on another wrestler, Andre the Giant, a 400-pounder who nearly swallowed him whole.
Chuck is the kind of guy who would probably fight a gorilla or a kangaroo. It wouldn't make any difference to Chuck. He was on the style of Tony Galento, who was known to fight a bear even like that. Chuck always wanted to know the bottom line. Is the money right, Al? That's all I'd ask. And the money was right for the fight. That's why we accepted it. And I knew Chuck Webner can handle himself in most any situation. The only thing Chuck used to be scared of was his wife. That's about all. Chuck was 6'6" or 6'6" and a half. He looked like a baby, dwarfed alongside. He was like a pygmy. It was unreal. I couldn't believe that Chuck, who looked so huge, looked like a little baby. Well, after sparring a good round, Chuck hits his guy a terrific jab, a jolt right on the schnoz, full face. I seen the Giant, he just went, huh. And I seen Chuck's face change a little bit. This was something wrong.
Without his normal script, Andre the Giant just went after Webner. Seriously. A serious mistake for Webner.
Then he picked up Chuck and he tossed him up and over the ropes down on the floor. No sooner he did that, Patty and I, we ran around to get Chuck, and as I go around to get him, there's some kind of other monster, not as big as him, but another guy, Gorilla Monsoon, was out there, holding Patty and I down, not allowing us to get Chuck in the ring. It was murder. You couldn't move these guys. It was all a big hullabaloo.
By the way, the Tony Galento mentioned by Braverman was known as Two-Ton Tony. Two-Ton Tony was a comical but powerful fella who fought Joe Louis and knocked him down. So why not take on a bear? But notice he's not trying to get the bear angry. They promoted fights any way they could in the bad old days. But one thing they never tried was man against woman. Jackie Barnett, a TV producer, thought up that one for tennis. His Tony Galento was Bobby Riggs, a former Wimbledon and U.S. Open champion and famous hustler of the rich and gullible.
I was sitting in Palm Springs with Bobby Riggs, whom I knew, and I saw some very good lady tennis players. And I said, Bobby, how would you do against them? And he said, they wouldn't get a game. He said, in fact, there's no college player from whom they can get a game. And I said, Bobby, even if it's a joke, I said, we can make this into a big thing. And I'd like to sell it for television. Bobby said, let's do it. Now, when the practice sessions started being held with Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs, it was a completely different scene. Like he said at a press conference, what are you going to wear? He said to her, and she said, I don't know, they're designing something. And he said, you want to know what I'm going to wear? She says, Bobby, I don't care if you walk out on the court in a jockstrap. Just make sure you're there to play some tennis.
This isn't just a tennis match. This is a battle of the sexes, and the gladiator for the men happened to be me. I happened to be cast into that role, a 55-year-old guy with one foot in the grave, and she says they're going to scrape me off the court of the Astrodome, and I claim it's going to be her they're going to scrape off. So that's what it's all about, and it is going to be the battle of the sexes.
The thing really gained tremendous momentum to the extent that the press came in from all over the world. They were sleeping in the fields. They were sleeping in back seats of cars. And the thing just went crazy. And Bobby was marvelous because Bobby, it was his big chance to speak again.
Billie Jean thrived on the hoopla. A tough competitor as well as a great player, she polished Riggs off in straight sets. She had male chauvinist pig for dinner before a primetime audience. Coming in the midst of the sexual and women's revolution, the match had the whole country choosing up sides. Although it helped launch the tennis boom, too, it became a rallying symbol for women's equality. And Bobby Riggs went back to hustling the rich and gullible. The Riggs King extravaganza was also a con. Bobby Riggs fooled the public into shelling out good money to watch what turned out to be a 55-minute version of the Dying Swan in tennis shorts. But how about the con that doesn't have a profit motive? A hoax that comes about because some people just wanted to throw the world a change of pace. People like George Plimpton or Sports Illustrated. Because if you believed everything you read in the spring of '85, you're probably wondering why Sid Finch didn't win the Cy Young Award. The Mets fantasy prospect Sid Finch could throw a ball 168 miles per hour.
It's hard to talk about what it's like. You'd almost have to be in there to find out. I mean, you know, it's like trying to catch something you can't hardly see. I mean, you know, the guy lets the ball go, and it's either in your glove or it's by you, one or the other, and it's just unbelievable.
The first one that came at me, I didn't see. You know, I just, you know, Ronnie was catching, and he said that, you know, be heads up, this guy can throw pretty hard. You know, I expected maybe 90, maybe 100 at the most. And when he let that thing go, I go, Ron, do you throw it? He goes, yeah, it's right here. I went, no way, you can't see it.
But you were quoted as saying something earlier about what would happen if one of these balls hit a batter.
You know, if he didn't have great control, it'd probably kill him.
A mock scouting report set up the next stage of the hoax. Staged interviews elaborated on his multilingual speaking habits and his metaphysical beliefs. To hide their prospect, the Mets built an enclosed pitching area in spring training for Finch's secret workouts.
I got a letter telling me to build a special enclosure here in the pitching cage, and that I would have to reinforce it with extra tarps.
The Mets went along with the April Fool's gag and sucked in a lot of people, including 2 reporters from the St. Petersburg Times and Commissioner Peter Uberoff. Although, when you think about it, if Sid Finch were real, he'd make the Mets' unreal Dwight Gooden obsolete. The hoax also brought in an avalanche of mail from astounded readers to Sports Illustrated, followed by an announcement by George Plimpton that Sid Finch had decided to retire. The inspired hoaxer and great sports imposter of our time, Barry Bremen, hasn't retired. Bremen has materialized undetected at all-star games in basketball and baseball, as an umpire at a World Series, and as a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. Almost everyone seems to embrace him now as a nervy Walter Mitty-ish fan. Since we showed all that in our first show, Bremen has once again crashed the All-Star game. After warming up with Don Mattingly, he almost made it to batting practice before getting caught. He also played an entire practice round of the U.S. Open, teaming himself with Curtis Strange, Jay Haas, and Fred Couples. He was not thrown out, perhaps thanks to his disguise and a pretty good round of golf.
You know, I've been off for a while, and today I just started really hitting the ball well. I think it was the inspiration of the other players, and I was just happy with it.
It couldn't have been the wig.
No, it's not the wig.
Barry, you're gorgeous, Barry. You're gorgeous.
Yeah, Barry Bremen, ladies and gentlemen, the great imposter. Shouldn't talk about the USGA, maybe. I just want to get out. They're not here, don't worry.
Now he has branched out beyond sports. He went to the Emmy Awards show and accepted an Emmy on behalf of, and to the stunned surprise of, Betty Thomas of Hill Street Blues. See, a little nerve, and you too can be a part of the not-so-great moments in sports. Since our first show, we've received letters, suggestions, and information on many great not-so-great moments, and we hope you keep them coming. Because, yes, we're planning another sequel. Until then, for all of us here at HBO Sports, I'm Tim McCarver, leaving you with yet another not-so-great moment. Remember? Here we go.
A place for somewhere, a place for peace and quiet, open air. Wait for us somewhere. There's a time for someday, a time for hold my hand and we'll have without. Hold my hand and I'll take you there someday. Somewhere.